Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm back today with the reading wrap-up video that I promised in my last video. So I thought in this video I could just go through all of the books that I've read so far this year, and then going forward I could do one of these videos every month rather than as a quarterly video. So something that I wanted to mention is that there are actually a couple of platforms at the moment offering free memberships whilst people are self-isolating and staying indoors. So Scribd have actually made available their entire library of books, ebooks, audiobooks, and sheet music, as well as lots of other resources. And it's something that I already was a paying member, so I already had a membership for, but they're offering 30 days for free and there's no card sign up or anything like that. Some of the books that I've actually read are available on Scribd, so that might be something that you want to check out and take advantage of those free 30 days. And I think Audible as well have released a whole host of children's stories that were on Audible, but there's things on there for children, adults, people of all ages, so I'll leave the relevant links to those down below. It's a perfect opportunity for you to kind of have access to that resource without having to pay for it up front, and then if you obviously enjoy it and use it a lot, maybe consider getting a membership. This is not sponsored, nothing like that. I just think if there's an opportunity to get free books or get access to free books, then it's worth sharing. So that being said, I'm going to just go through all of the books that I've read so far this year. I feel like I need to just caveat this with this isn't probably representative of what I would normally read. I read a really wide range of different genres, but obviously because I've been going through some pretty deep and heavy personal stuff, I have been reading and reaching for books that I may not normally go for. There's a couple of poetry books in there, a couple of books about grief, and also some really just really cute like romance novels as well in there. So I'm going to talk you through them one by one, and I'll obviously link to all of the relevant resources below. So let's get started. So the first book I read, I think I actually started at the back end of 2019, and this is A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. Now I listened to this as an audiobook on Audible, and I'm struggling to kind of fully recollect the main themes of the book, but essentially it's a really deeply profound book about spiritual awakening, enlightenment and consciousness. It talks about the egoic mind a lot, which is you've got your thinking mind and then you've got your true kind of sense of self, and your true sense of self is the presence within that is aware that the mind is thinking. So when you're thinking a thought, there is something in there that knows that you are thinking a thought, which demonstrates that the thinking mind is not your true self, because the true self has that awareness. I think that's how I would describe it. I hope that makes sense. As I say, it's a very, very kind of deep book, and I think you've got to be at a certain level of your kind of spiritual journey to be able to fully appreciate and take on board some of the themes, and I don't think that I'm there yet. So I'm just going to be referring to my phone just to check what I rated this. So I rated this 3 stars, and as I say, I would recommend it, but only if you're at a kind of certain level of your spiritual journey. Otherwise I don't think you can really properly connect to the themes, and a lot of it may go over your head. I know a lot of it went over my head. So yeah, I think this as well is the second book. I think The Power of Now is the first book, which I'm currently listening to at the moment on Scribd. I think he released The Power of Now first and this was the second. So yeah, A New Earth, Awakening to Your Life's Purpose was the first book of the year. So the second book of 2020 was Coming Home to Glendale Hall, and I actually started this just kind of in the last week over Christmas and New Year. This was an ebook. I think I got this on my Kindle, and I think it was like a 99p offer. But I just wanted something really cozy, really comforting. I was in a really, really dark and just a horrible place, and I just wanted something that would make me feel happier and even try and get a little bit of the Christmas spirit, which I didn't really get that, but I think under normal circumstances it would have been a real tonic and just giving you all of those cozy vibes. So Coming Home to Glendale Hall is about a woman who is a single mom. She left home when she was 16 and she hasn't been back for 10 years, and the book follows her returning back to her kind of ancestral home in Scotland and trying to rebuild relationships with her family, all kind of wrapped up with a big Christmas bow on top. It's very kind of festive, warm, cozy, just kind of what you'd expect from the title. So I gave this 3 stars. I think it was an enjoyable read, perfect for around Christmas time. So the third book that I read was Grief is the Thing with Feathers by Max Porter, and I actually gave this book 5 stars. This book is unlike anything I've ever read, really. I remember being really kind of in the dark depths of grieving, and this book brought me so much comfort. So the book itself, let me just quickly bring up the synopsis. So in a London flat, 2 young boys face the unbearable sadness of their mother's sudden death. Their father, a Ted Hughes scholar and a scruffer romantic, imagines a future of well-meaning visitors and emptiness. In this moment of despair, they are visited by the Crow, antagonistic, trickster, healer, babysitter. Now, the book itself is almost like part novel, part poem. It's almost like an essay on grief. I don't know how to describe it, but it's absolutely worth adding to your collection. Or, you know, if you find yourself grieving, which at some stage we all will, this book will be a real, I think you will enjoy it, and it's one I probably will come back to time and time again. The title is a play on the Emily Dickinson poem Hope is the Thing with Feathers, and yeah, you can see I've got lots of little tags in here because there was just so many just passages and sentences that really kind of struck a chord with me. I absolutely loved this book, would 100% recommend it. So the next book that I read was Verity by Colleen Hoover, and I actually read this for free on my Kindle. They do sometimes do like daily deals, or I don't have Kindle Unlimited, but I do have Prime Reading, and I think for a limited time it was on Prime Reading. Now I joined like a book challenge Facebook group. It's the Pop Sugar book challenge, and I'm loosely following along with it. I was a little bit more enthusiastic at the start of the year, but it's a really good place to get prompts and ideas for different books, and lots of people share when books are on offer and things like that. Now Verity was one that was getting a lot of attention in the group, and from what I was seeing, it was quite a divisive book. Lots of people loving it, lots of people hating it, and I've never read any of Colleen Hoover's books before, and apparently this is quite different from all of her other stuff. I gave this book 3 stars, and I think I actually read this one in a day, just throughout the day. It was a really quick and easy read. It kept me really kind of engaged. I wanted to get to the end. I wanted to find out what happened. Now, I'm just referring back to the synopsis because, as I say, a lot's happened this year and my memory isn't the best. So this one, Lowen is a struggling writer on the brink of financial ruin when she accepts the job offer of a lifetime. Jeremy Crawford, husband of best-selling author Verity Crawford, has hired Lowen to complete the remaining books in a successful series his injured wife is unable to finish. So what happens is Lowen kind of packs everything up. I remember the book opens with a real strong opening. The first sentence in that book was one of the prompts that I used, which was a book with a killer first sentence, and yeah, it's got quite the opening. And then we follow her journey as she moves to this kind of like quite gothic old house in the middle of nowhere, and this story unfolds. She finds the wife's kind of hidden autobiography, and we go on this journey. It's really good. I would definitely recommend it. I think I gave this 3 stars, but take the ratings with a pinch of salt. I think when we rate books, they can change all the time. I would have probably, thinking back on this, maybe given it 4 stars because I do still think about this book quite a lot. I can remember quite a lot about it. So if it's on offer and you just want something quick, thriller, I think you would enjoy Verity. So the next book that I read was Penguin's Poems for Life, and I was reading a lot of poetry books, which I do read quite a lot of poetry anyway, but I was responsible for organising my friend's funeral, and I mean organising the whole thing, so I wanted to include some poetry, and I referred to this as a source of inspiration. This is a beautiful anthology of poems. The poems are selected by Laura Barber, and the book is divided up into all of the different stages of life. So from birth and beginnings through to growing up and first impressions, making a living and making love, family life, getting older, and then imitations of mortality and mourning. And there are some absolutely beautiful poems in here. A couple of my favourites actually, The Owl and the Pussycat is in here, and this one is one of my favourite poems. This is Philip Larkin, This Be the Verse. I really enjoyed this book. I read through it in no time at all, just a few pages a night. You can get through poetry anthologies quite quickly. So let me just check, what did I give this one? I gave this 4 stars. I would highly recommend it if you just want a poetry book that you can just pick up and dip into. This is a great option. So I think we're on to book number 6 now, and this was Searcy by Madeline Miller. Now, I tried reading this last year, or maybe even, it was a long time ago when I tried to read it anyway, and I just couldn't get into it. And even when reading this time around, I found it a little bit of a slog, to be honest, which I really don't want to say that, because on paper this is everything I love about books. It's got magic, it's got Greek mythology in there. Everything, I should have loved everything about this book, but I just don't know what it was. Now, if you don't know, I'm sure you're aware, Searcy is an incredibly popular book. Lots and lots of people I see reading it all the time. So the book follows the story of Searcy, who is the daughter of, I think, is it Helios? I'm sorry about my pronunciation. And essentially she gets banished to an island, and it's all about nature. There's elements of kind of witchcraft in there. It's a really good story. I don't know, maybe it was the writing style, I'm not sure what it was, but I just kind of found myself wanting to get to the end of it, and I really, really wanted to love this book. I gave it 3 stars, and I would recommend it. I've seen lots of people absolutely loved it, but this one kind of, I don't know what it was, it just didn't quite do it for me. So the next book that I read was 3 Women by Lisa Taddeo. Now, this book got loads of hype. I was seeing it all the time on Instagram, so I downloaded it on the Kindle store and I read it in, I think, maybe 1 or 2 days. I found it quite a compelling read, but I'm not sure if it fully kind of lived up to the hype for me personally. So the book follows 3 women over 8 years and explores lots of different themes, really about femininity, desire, power, sex, and 3 quite kind of distinct stories of the women that Lisa followed for the book. I think what the book did really well was the whole kind of non-fiction written in the style of fiction. When you're reading it, it does almost read like a work of fiction. There was a couple of moments where I kind of had to remind myself that this was actually non-fiction, and I think that that part of the book was done incredibly well. So overall, I gave this one 3 stars. I would recommend it. The sex and scandal aplenty if that's kind of the thing that you're into. Reasonably compelling and engaging read, but yeah, it was okay. I enjoyed it. So the next book that I read was Hearst by Michelle Paver. Now, I'm struggling to kind of remember a lot of the detail about this book. I gave it 4 stars. So Hearst is set in the early 1900s, and it's essentially just kind of a piece of gothic fiction. It kind of depicts the protagonist Maud, her father, descending into madness after finding an old painting in a churchyard. It was quite a good book, but again, I just wanted to get to the end of it, and I think that the book really captured brilliantly the kind of oppressive atmosphere and culture of Edwardian England, and yeah, I thought as a historical Gothic fiction goes, it was reasonably enjoyable. But again, I just kind of found myself wanting to get to the end of this one just to get it finished. I did give it 4 stars though, but I think that's because that's kind of Gothic historical fiction is one of my favourite genres, so I'm naturally more drawn to those types of books anyway. But it was reasonably enjoyable. Again, I think I got that either on Prime, I think that one was on Amazon Prime Reading, so if you've got Amazon Prime, you'll be able to get that for free on your Kindle. Okay, so the next 2 books I read were these from my little Penguin collection up there. I've got the Penguin Classics, Little Black Classics, and these are great. You can buy these individually for, I think they're a £1 each. So I read Giorgio Vasari's Leonardo da Vinci, and I believe that this is taken from a larger body of works. Yeah, so this is taken from a larger body of work called The Lives of Artists, but it's a really fascinating insight into the lives of some of the most well-known Renaissance artists. I really enjoyed this book. So I think if I remember rightly, in here you've got Leonardo da Vinci, Filippo Lippi and Botticelli. So it's a really accessible way just to get an insight into their kind of lives, and from someone who was around at the time as well. So really would recommend that. I think I gave this 4 stars. And the next book was The Night is Darkening Around Me by Emily Bronte. I mentioned this I think in my February Plan With Me video. This is quite a dark one. The themes are all about death and her experience of that. Emily Bronte was clearly a little bit obsessed with death, but I think it's important to think about the landscape at the time. In Haworth, there was a lot of death. I mean, I think the life expectancy was like 25 or something when Emily Bronte was around. But this collection of poems, there's some absolutely beautiful poems in here and some really strong themes of nature. And although the subject matter is one of, you know, it's difficult, it can be a bit heavy sometimes. I don't know what it is, but I always felt uplifted at the end of reading these poems. Yeah, I really did enjoy this book. I think I gave this one, let me double check. I gave this one 5 stars, and I think again that's more because of the space that I was in when I was reading this book. It did bring me a lot of comfort, but yeah, I absolutely love these little books. They're so affordable and accessible, and I'm currently just working my way through my collection up there. So yeah, really enjoyed both of those. So hopefully, because I've read these books a little bit more recently, I can remember more about them. I'm sorry if those were all a little bit kind of sketchy, but it was a few months ago when I read some of those books and it's hard to recall them, which is why I'll be doing these monthly going forward. But the next book that I read was Winter in Sokcho, I think that's how you pronounce it, by Elisa de Sopin. I think that's how I pronounce it. I'm so sorry if I butchered the pronunciation again. I picked up this book when I was in Daunt Books in London. There was a big kind of promo stand for it and the cover caught my eye straight away. It's a relatively short read. I absolutely loved this book. Just to give you kind of a little bit of a blurb about the book. So it's winter in Sokcho, a tourist town on the border of South and North Korea. The cold slows everything down, bodies are red and raw and the fish turn venomous. Beyond the beach, guns point out from the north watchtowers. A young French-Korean woman works as a receptionist in a rundown guest house. One evening, an unexpected guest arrives, a French graphic novelist determined to find inspiration in the desolate landscape. Now, what's really interesting about this book is whilst it's set in Korea, it's actually translated from French. The language is almost poetic, dreamlike. I read this in one afternoon. It's a really short, really engaging bit of something different, really. I would really recommend this book. I absolutely loved it. I think, yeah, let me just double check. I think I gave this one 5 stars. Yeah, oh no, I gave this 4 stars. So that just goes to show that the ratings are so subjective, because I would probably give this 5 stars now, but I gave it 4 stars then. But yeah, really enjoyed this one. Okay, so another book that I read was Bunny by Mona Awad, and I saw this recommended. I can't remember where, it must have been on a YouTube video or something, but I got this, I'm pretty sure I read this on Scribd, and this book, first of all, just, it is so out there. It is really, really out there. It's like Mean Girls meets The Craft. That's the only way I can describe it. When I got to the end, I was still a bit like, what did I just read? It's like magic surrealism. I don't know, I don't even know how to describe this book. I gave it 5 stars because it was just so unlike anything else that I'd ever read. It made a real impression on me, where at the end of it I was just like in a state of confusion, like what just happened. Let me just get the synopsis. So this book follows our main character Samantha. She's an outsider in a really kind of highly selective master's program in like a New England university, and she essentially kind of gets caught up with this group of girls who all call each other Bunny, and it just follows kind of the depiction of her becoming really immersed in the world with these bunnies and what goes on behind closed doors. I really don't want to give too much away about this book. I think the less you know about it, the better, and then you can kind of form your own opinions. But I think that this is a book that will definitely divide people. I think you would either love it or hate it, or just be like, what the hell? But I actually really loved it, and I would definitely recommend it. So book number 12 is The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse. I showed this briefly in my last video. I picked this up, I think, in the supermarket. It was on offer. This is an absolutely beautiful book. I think I gave this book 5 stars. It's a pick-up book, so you can just pick it up and open it at any page, and there's just beautiful sentiments and illustrations, and it's like a lovely warm hug or a warm cup of tea in a book. I really, really love this. I think it's a book that everybody should have a copy of in their collection. I don't think there's much more to say about this. The author, Charlie Maxey, is also on Instagram and shares a lot of his work on there, and a lot of images and sections of the book he actually shares on his Instagram. So maybe go and have a look over there. I'll link it down below. Maybe go and have a look over there first of all, and just kind of get a bit of an idea of what the book's like, and then maybe treat yourself to the actual book. It is a beautiful book to have in your collection. So yeah, I gave this one 5 stars. So the next book that I read was actually an audiobook that I listened to. It was Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I feel like this is self-explanatory. I've listened or read these books so many times over the years, I've lost count. But essentially what I do is I just listen to one of them pretty much every night before I go to bed. I'll listen to a chapter and just work my way through them that way. So it probably took like a month or so to get through, because I just listened to it in small increments every night before bed. But I love the narration by Stephen Fry. Yeah, I don't think there's much more I need to say about that. I gave it 4 stars. And then the last book that I read was actually quite a cute one. It was another ebook, and I can't remember when I bought this. What I'll do is, when there's offers on in the Kindle store, I'll just get myself a couple of books that are on offer for 90, like, you know, like the 99p deals. And this was one of those. This was The Telephone Box Library by Rachel Lucas, and this was a really cute book. Classic kind of chick lit romance novel where we follow a burnt out teacher who kind of goes on a sabbatical at work and escapes to whereabouts is it? I'm sure it's the Cotswolds. Yeah, it's the Cotswolds. And what's woven in with this story is kind of the background of Bletchley Park and the war, and it's just a really kind of predictable but sweet story, and I did enjoy it. I just read it because I needed something to make me feel cozy and uplifted and just warm and happy, and it certainly did the job. I gave it 3 stars because it was not that kind of, I always feel bad, I don't want to criticise books or authors, but it was just okay. There's like certain, in my mind, there's certain categories that I assign to books, and there's like a pile of books that would be just okay, and that kind of would fall into that. It wasn't a book that I thought was groundbreaking or amazing or kind of real that I really connected with, but it did exactly what I wanted it to, which was make me feel warm and cozy. So from that point of view, it kind of was perfect for what I was looking for. But it was a really sweet story, and if you're looking for something like that, I think you would really enjoy it. So yeah, I gave that one 3 stars, and that is The Telephone Box Library by Rachel Lucas. And I think that's all 15 books that I've read so far. I thought I would just quickly share with you what I'm reading at the moment. So I always have 2 or 3 books on the go at any one time, because my mood changes a lot, and what I fancy reading changes quite a lot. So at the moment I'm currently reading Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This was a gift from my friend Alison, and I wanted this book because another friend, Michael, said that he preferred this more than Searcy, which is by the same author. So I'm really excited to get properly stuck into this. And I'm also reading Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng, and I'm enjoying that so far. I don't want to talk about these too much because they'll be included in my next video, but I just thought I would quickly kind of fill you in on what I'm reading at the moment. And I wanted to show you these little bookmarks that I made. I wondered if you would be interested in me making a little tutorial, because when I shared them on Instagram, everyone was asking about them, and I just thought it might be quite a nice little idea to make an origami bookmark tutorial video. So if you're interested in that and you want some of these pretty bookmarks and to make them yourself, drop me a comment down below, and yeah, I'll happily make that video and share that. So I think that's everything. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and next time hopefully I'll be a little bit more articulate and actually be able to remember some of the books that I've read, because I'll have recently read them. So I will see you again probably at the end of April for the next reading wrap up. If there are any other bookish videos that you'd like me to make, whether that's like my TBR or I don't know, any of the book tags, I would love to get involved with those, because I am a complete bookworm. So thank you so much for watching. Please let me know in the comments below what you're reading. If you've read any of these books, what did you think of them? And stay safe, and yeah, just take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.